Hi, good morning. Welcome to the Coffee Table Talks. We see Kevin coming in from YouTube. Good morning, Kevin. You guys. So my birthday was like 9-ish days ago. No, exactly 9 days ago.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
Thanks.
Happy birthday to you.
I'm 103. So.
Well, you don't look a day over 100.
Oh my gosh. You know what it is? I have an excellent skincare regimen.
Oh, good for you. Wait, if you wouldn't mind putting that in the chat for everybody, I'm sure that's what they were here to find out today.
It is. I moisturize a lot. I live in Louisiana, so it comes naturally just from the air. So that's good. But my very good, very, very good close friend, Quinn, who, by the way, this year is decided to change his career path and get into IT and cybersecurity.
Woo.
I know. I'm so excited.
We need more.
We need so many more. So he got me this lovely mug. Look, it's a mushroom. But what I'm sad about is that when I take the cap off, it's like you don't know it's a mushroom anymore. But anyway, I had to show everybody that it was actually a very adorable little fungi because I'm a goblin.
And it is coffee in there, right? You're not cheating with like tea or chai or anything like that?
No, it's definitely just coffee and Bailey's. I mean, coffee. It's definitely just coffee. And then Will has an interesting cup today because he spoke to me in German, and that's what made me decide it was interesting. I was like, what?
That's my Biergläser, which I use for water.
I was like, what is that?
And
so
again,
anyhow.
Water. Got it.
So grab medicinal purposes.
Or wine. I like Rob or wine. Hey everyone, Kevin says hey. So grab your cup, circle up, because we're about to talk about some cybersecurity yays with Bert Robertson from Ethopass. Now, if you guys don't know what Ethopass does, that's okay, because we're going to get into that. And plus, I also have this handy dandy. Look at this. I made another one of those fancy non-malicious QR codes. You should go check it out. It's cool. We're talking about
it lights up and everything.
I know.
You're
We're talking about authentication made easy.
And you can take the word for it that it's non.
And I'm sure every single security person on this thread is now using that. Everybody, use this.
It is. And what is so fun too is I love your you guys' like advisory group, right? You got our good pal Chris Robertson there teaching you, advising on how to do it right? Along with a lot of other great folks. So go check it out. Definitely go check it out. Let's see. And then the one at the top there by Bert's head will lead you to his LinkedIn. So go check out Bert too. So one thing we were discussing in the pre-show is how someone very close to me was surprised that Bert is the CEO / co-founder of Ethopass. And it's because Bert is super approachable, relatable, and does not wear suits. And it's one of my favorite things about Bert. It is absolutely
tough room.
Just his genuine self. And I was like, how cool is that? So Bert, how did you get to be the CEO of an authentication company that is very, in my opinion, super unique, right? Like, and we'll get into the technology bit here in a little bit, but how did you become the CEO of Ethopass?
Well, that's easy. The first thing you do is start a company, and then you give yourself the title. I mean, it's that easy. Anybody can do it.
Anybody, really?
Anybody can do it. Yeah. No, so super easy. It's just a matter of getting everything going. But yeah, back to your point about approachable. I'm the guy. I wear flip flops day in, day out. That's like my thing. You're not going to fool anybody in a suit. Right. If you see somebody in a suit, it's like, okay, what are you trying to pull over on me? I don't know. That's just the way I feel about it.
That's a gauntlet lay down.
There's some industries where it's really expected still, financial services, things like that. When I go into those type of establishments, if I have meetings and things there, I will dress it up a little bit, which means a collared shirt. But other than that, I'm probably still in jeans and flip-flops. You do have those other organizations where you see somebody walking through in a suit. There's actually a company in Denver, and it made everybody very weary. It's like, well, why is this guy here, and why is he in a suit?
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. You know what I did? I got so excited to introduce you because you're so fun that I forgot to introduce me and Will, and that's horrible. And I'm going to correct that really fast.
Yeah.
So if you're new here, my name is Rachel Arnold. I am the human API with SecureNation, which is a boutique reseller, white glove service. We take care of you with all your cybersecurity tech stack needs. Will McCullen, my forever lovely, beautiful co-host, Will McCullen, is the program director for the IT Center for Excellence at PIMA Community College in Tucson, Arizona. There's their QR code, also not malicious. You can do that. You can definitely do that. So one of the reasons why we do these coffee table talks is because Rachel, as a human API, I connect humans. All right. If you know anything about APIs, that's an application protocol interface. All right. And it's how your apps talk to each other so that they give you a smooth user experience. I do that, but for humans. Okay. That's what happens is I end up connecting people together for a smooth, transitionless experience with all the things you need and want. It's what I don't know why I'm good at it. Probably some part of a traumatic childhood. I don't know, but that's what I do. And I love doing it. You can go check out SecureNation at that QR code, also non-malicious, or you can subscribe to our YouTube. You see the people in the chat that are joining from YouTube? That's how they got there. Yay! Oh, it shined.
It's so fancy.
It is so fancy. It is. It's very fancy. So that's a little bit more about us. And that's how I come across so many interesting guests. So if you go to the YouTube, or you can go back through the SecureNation LinkedIn page, which that non-malicious QR code up there will take you to, you can look at our previous events, check out our previous guests. We always recommend that you go connect with them as well, because I'm bringing you the most helpful people that I personally know in cybersecurity. I have hung out with Bert. We did that in Miami, didn't we?
We did. We did some axe throwing.
We did. So a couple of years ago, I put together a benefit in Miami called the Bad Axe event, or the Bad Axe thing. What was it? It was Bad Axe.
It was something Bad Axe something. Yeah.
It was awesome. But it was a fundraiser for the Innocent Lives Foundation that we did in Miami. So very cool. We got to hang out with the president for the local ISACA chapter. We got to hang out with Bert. We got to hang out with Chris Hadnaggy. We got and his wife were there. It was fantastic. Very lovely. Anywho, so authentication, Ethopass, you decided to become a CEO, right? So can you briefly explain how Ethopass does authentication different? Let's talk about how it's done traditionally now, and then talk about what was wrong and you wanted to fix.
All right. This isn't only an hour show, right? So yeah. So I mean, I don't think we have to go into the entire backlog of how authentication has been broken in the past and the things that need to be done differently and things like that. I mean, because I think most people generally get that type of stuff these days. But really,
wait, they do. But my neighbor, who is not my neighbor bestie, Meg, who is not in cybersecurity, how would you explain to her about authentication? Because she's watching. She wants to know. She wants to know
why past authentication is not good. Well, okay, we'll get into it, right? So when it comes to authentication, it's been essentially broken for many years in that most authentication, because of the digital age, has been made portable. So when you think about a portable piece of information, if you can access it from anywhere in the world, if you get that information, you're now able to get into said account. So because of that, passwords specifically, if they're ever captured, you can use it anywhere in the world to gain access to an account, a service, or whatever it may be. So we talk about portability quite a bit from an authentication standpoint and how that didn't help. Now you put cell phones in everybody's pocket and they're all authenticating from everywhere all the time, from anywhere. And now you have to try to figure out who is who. But once you capture that information, you are essentially that person. And so we've kind of, confounded that by then adding in a second piece of information. Multi-factor authentication, 2FA, whatever it is, whatever the flavor may be, SMS, an authenticator app, a push notification, a magic link. That just makes it more difficult, but obviously not something that's not too hard to break either, right? Social engineering, phishing, vishing, and many of the other things that are out there from a social engineering aspect that allows attackers to gain information by simply asking for it from their users and from people. So now you have basically a thing that's been broken for a long time, easily broken, and you try to, for us here at Ethopass, you try to think of ways to mitigate that. And essentially the way we've done that is through what we call metamorphic identities. Which is essentially a changing identity each and every time somebody authenticates into an account. And for us, we were able to mitigate, essentially engineer out the ability to be phished, and make it useful for an attacker.
Will, you okay?
Yeah.
That was a lot, right? That was a lot. Did everybody just fall asleep?
No,
No. I'm just thinking how to unpack that a little bit for some of our folks.
Sure. Why don't we break it down in stages then, and maybe think about different aspects of authentication, how it's done today, maybe, and we can try to figure it out from there.
Okay.
Yeah, you're the expert, dude.
Well, So here's the thing. So organizations today, specifically around workforce, users, things like that, they're trying to figure out ways to make it, one, a great user experience while also increasing security. And those two things really kind of fight each other in many different ways, because it's hard to make something more secure when people are always going to be your weakest link. And so when you have things like username, passwords, when you have things like information that can be shared and information that's portable, like I said before, that is when you have a big issue with that information getting out, being able to be used in different places and different areas. And that's where that social engineering aspect really comes into play. And really, that's 80% of data breaches today are from social engineering.
Right, because it's whatever you come to, you have the person. And the whole idea is trying to say, it is that person, right?
Yep.
And you've got this gap from human flesh to whatever device, right? That's a hard thing to do.
It is a hard thing to do. It's there's obviously been some great strides in the space recently. There are companies that claim phishing resistance. Unfortunately, I think that phishing resistance is only met with the last line of defense, which is typically a PIN, username, password at somewhere down the line today. We can also get into, some of the really unique tactics that our attackers are utilizing today, where they're actually attacking executives of large corporations' families to now get into accounts. And so now you have non-cybersecurity trained individuals that are expected to keep a company's assets safe that they don't even know they're protecting. So
yeah, right. And ever since COVID now, we have all those other difficulties where you have folks that all of a sudden all ended up at home and they're around the computer that everybody uses. Right. Everything from the kids playing games to grandma to the work that's being done. That opens up all sorts of challenges.
Absolutely. Well, think about how many people have allowed their kid to use their computer, whether it's work or their personal computer. I mean,
right.
I'm luckily that I've been trained to absolutely not, and I have a separate personal computer.
Yep.
But a lot of people don't realize that. Now let's take that a step further. How many people have family Apple accounts?
Yep.
Okay, now your wife is an admin on your family Apple account. She gets phished. Now they have access to your iCloud keychain. They can give themselves persistence by making themselves a recovery aspect. There's so many other things that they can get into once they get into that separate account. And so, when I discovered this, I had to take myself off, my wife, my kids, all their things and all their devices, because I'm like, whoa, if they come after my company, now they can get in through my 8 and 9-year-old somehow on their iPad, or they can phish my wife, who, if they call her up and pretend it's Apple, I'd say it's probably a 50-50 chance she's gonna be like, well, here's the information you need.
Yep. And that's the social engineering aspect, right? Of how they get,
And they're very good at it these days.
They are very, very good at it.
Yeah.
And now you want to get into the dystopian future of that? Now you add generative AI, and when, today as an attacker, I can call one person, I get one person on the phone, and then I have that one opportunity. Now you can make that scalable into the millions, and now it becomes a really, really big problem.
Well, it's already a big problem. It's just now it's a faster moving problem.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, it just becomes exponentially harder. I just being in the space and seeing what I see on a day-to-day and day in, day out basis, I fear a day that every single, phone call you get on your phone is going to be just another phishing attempt. How do you authenticate that user? Do you need to have a code word with your friends to make sure that it's actually them?
We kind of do. Josh and I wear tinfoil hats. We do.
I took mine off before we started.
Thanks. But yeah, we absolutely do that. Or like we won't have deeply personal conversations via text or phone or any other message, right? Unless it's face to face. That's the only way we have deep conversations about anything and it's, I don't know. I guess we get kind of tinfoil hat, right? Yeah. We're like, this is we understand how data moves.
That's where it's really, really difficult, right? For some of it, I'd say is our fault as far as IT, right? Because we have created a system that now requires expertise and understanding to actually be secure. We have situations in the cyber warfare range here at PIMA to where we've helped folks that women who have come out of abusive situations, right? But the people that they were involved with are still entrenched in everything from their TV accounts to their, Ring doorbells to whatever, that once you talked about Apple with persistence, once you can get things on the phone and in the backups, then you get another phone, it backs it right up from the account and things like that not everybody is aware of. It's gotten very complex. And so then how do you protect the standard person? That is what this is all about, because technology is all for people, supposedly.
Yeah. Right? Well, I think the first thing that organizations have to do is to protect themselves, because they first have everybody's data that they've collected and have stored somewhere, which is typically that pot of gold that attackers are after, right? They're not after, there's, really no, cyber espionage rings going around, trying to get corporate information for the most part. You're not hearing a whole heck of a lot of that. They're typically trying to get a large database of information to be able to sell out on the open web, or sell in exchanges and things like that, for then people or other malicious actors to then utilize that information for personal gain, right? So organizations as a whole can protect their customers, their end users, and things like that by first protecting themselves, which, today is, we'll say lackluster to be, nice about it. I just saw a statistic the other day, and have to try to figure out where I saw this, but the statistic was that 80% of businesses were breached within the last 24 months. That's a scary statistic. The scarier statistic that followed that was only 30% of them actually know about it so far.
Yeah. I feel like that's legit.
Right? But I mean, but how scary is that? So now you have, over 50% of those businesses that have been breached that still have an active threat inside their walls or inside their digital walls, actively ready to pounce and or utilize that persistence in whatever ways that they were worried about. I mean, if you look at some of the threats from nation states and things like that from a critical infrastructure standpoint, are they in there? Do we know if they're in there?
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty scary stuff.
So this is my neighbor Meg. She says, and Meg is fantastic. She's been a dancer and theater centric forever, right? Since day one. And in her theater mindset, she pictures this as creating a unique mask each time you log in somewhere. And yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to pop that comment up.
I think that's a great way to look at it. I think that's a great analogy for what we do. To get a little bit more technical from an Ethopass standpoint, we use asymmetric key pairs.
So what is that? What is that? Slow down.
So that's a public and private key, very much how cryptocurrencies are traded today. Right. In cryptocurrencies and on blockchain, those are immutable pieces of information. Immutable meaning they cannot be changed. What our protocol and where our patents are is that we have made it to where these are able to cryptographically validate that user and then update and rotate to that next pseudo-random, so you have to inject some randomness, cryptographic key set. That way, nobody can just say, oh, well, you're at key number 1, you're going to be at key number 2 next, or where are you in this key chain? You add in randomness, so that way they can't just guess where you are on the next cycle.
Yeah. Scott asks, how do I figure out if they're in there if half of us have already been breached and don't know? I mean, that goes back to your indicators of compromise. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, so that's going to be on your IT organization. Actually, this would be a great thought experiment for Will. What would your team do to go about, what would the cyber warfare group over there go through to try to find a potential breach?
Well,
awesome. In all those different areas, right? It's like, what breach? So, but we'll say specifically from an identity standpoint and an authentication breach.
Oh, I know what my first thing is.
What is it?
My first thing is it's going to be based on behavioral analytics. What is the baseline of behaviors for that user? And does this somehow differentiate from their normal behavior? So if they normally log in from New Jersey every day at 10, but on, whatever, the 24th of August, they logged in from Berlin, right? And going back to your German mug, Will, at like 3 p.m., right? I would be like, did they tell anybody they were going on vacation? And if they did, one, we've got a couple of things, right? As from an operations standpoint. One, why didn't your manager tell you to turn off all your work stuff? You're on vacation, you dope. Two, did you notify anybody that you were going to be working perhaps out of Berlin? No? Okay. This is now an indicator of compromise based on geolocation and behavioral analytics. That's my first one. Anyway, because I'm a people person. I go from the, people behavior side. Anyway, Will, what's yours?
Well, that's one I have to be a little careful of because we're working with a different company that's doing something in a different way that comes through the range technologies, which is called Itatum. But the thing that makes our area very unique is that we've got a whole bunch of folks learning how to be hackers in our environment. So we have folks that are working very hard at penetrating and also insider threats in our organization. So we already have folks kind of crawling all over the system at all times anyway. And so I would say to some degree, we have probably a greater awareness going on because they're challenging the people that are right in the next room, right? and when you have a much smaller user base that way that are actually coming in through that system, it's a lot easier to watch. So it's not like we're a corporation, massive corporation, right? And we also have a much larger team, if you will, because everybody's exploring it in weird and wonderful ways. And it's also a different environment because it's a non-PII environment, and it's kind of a bit of a honeypot in total anyway. So I don't think we'd quite be a fair analogy for that, where
Sure.
we're going at it in different things. But we do, like you're talking about, Rachel, is focus on the energy. And that energy is being what's coming from where and why, right? And typically in an academic environment, and this is where identity management gets really challenging, is that an academic environment is built on sharing at its DNA, almost kind of like a public library, right? And I would say we do have foreign state actors and stuff like that coming through at times. So that's a very difficult and different challenge, to where then you do have to have an idea of who people are and why, building up a knowledge of their habits, their times that they use things, the different things that they normally do, and then bringing in that comparison.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we do that. So,
So,
but I appreciate the question.
yeah, well, it's always fun, right? And to get back to what you guys are doing, the red team, blue teaming, and purple teaming are great exercises for organizations to do. But really, when you think about it from a general business aspect, how many are actually doing that? 5%, 4%?
Right.
You know, not very many have active red teams going against their own organization on a day and invest in that, because they look at it as a cost center versus an ROI for what they're going to prevent. But now you have some great rules with the SEC saying that, you know, you have to disclose a breach within 4 days, and some things coming down the pipeline that's going to make it a little bit more transparent. But you know, there's also, you know, some unique ways. Again, you know, something we do at Ethopass is, because we have our keys and they're constantly rotating and changing, we inherently have built in what we call a digital dead man switch. So if somebody were ever to capture that key from you, get your forward passphrase to decrypt it, so they need 2 pieces of information to actually pull off that successful attack, which is incredibly difficult to do.
Yeah, they can't even do that with a keylogger.
Right. Well, if they were to be able to do all of that, then they update and rotate to the next cryptographic set. The user is then immediately notified when they try to log in the next time, because they won't be able to get in. They don't have the correct cryptographic key. Thus, they have to raise their hand and say, hey, something's wrong. I can't get into my account. And now they're actually becoming a passive defensive perimeter for your organization without ever even knowing they're participating. All they know is, I can't do my job. I got to get back into my account. Like I got work to do today, right? So but they can call help desk. They can, you know, authenticate themselves through those steps that a help desk would. And then once they do that, help desk is probably gonna say, well, you know, I see you logged in at this time. Obviously, those keys updated, rotate. I'm going to go ahead and delete that access. And then, so now you've kicked the attacker out. Great. Now let's go ahead and mitigate how they got onto your device, because they obviously have, you know, you either gave them that information and they had to have a rootkit to actually get those encrypted keys off your device. So now let's go ahead and get you safe again before we give you access back.
Right, which most tools in a tech stack would detect that rootkit, correct or no? Am I wrong? Totally off base.
Maybe, if you're lucky, because they're constantly updating, they're constantly changing. If it's a malware that's actually been updated into that system and they catch it, sure. If it's something new and novel, no.
Yeah, 0 days.
Well, that's the hard part about it, right? It's they're always updating and changing, and they typically are loading in that code to have something to test against. But when it's something new, it's just going to take that information. And so that's the hard part about it, is things are being updated, things are moving at the the speed of light, and attackers are finding new novel ways to get in every single day. And once it's never going to be the same thing. It's like while the same thing is easy from a social engineering standpoint, when you get more technical, it moves very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then how much have you had to deal with? Oh, how do I say this nicely? I don't care.
Don't be nice. We're not here for niceties.
How do you deal with other vendors' integration difficulties with previous technologies and things of that sort? Have you found yourself having to rewrite libraries? Have you found yourself having to go in and make major updates to older protocols?
Yeah. So, so what we do here at Ethopass is very, very different than what you're going to see from most providers out there today. We are very deliberate in how we do each and every single one of our integrations, and they're unique in and of to themselves, right? So we only have a limited number today because we want to make sure that each of those are one, unique in and of themselves, but two, pen tested or penetration tested for each single type of integration that we do. So we're never going to say, oh, here, we just have this general API, connect to it. Here's an SDK, just drop it in anywhere. That's not the type of integrations that we do. And that's why, we've, rolled out a little bit slower than, what most authentication companies would, but it's because we're very, very deliberate, because authentication is important. It's the front door, right? It's the front door to your organization. It's the front door to everything. You're not going to build a house and leave your front door open, right? Or leave it unlocked.
Right.
Most people are, right? So it's the most important part of the organization. And so, and we treat it as such. So we want to make sure that we do everything the correct way on the front end. So that way, you don't have a cascading failure if something were to happen.
Oh yeah. What I'm talking about is that once you get past your technology, because you're trying to authenticate to other technologies.
Sure.
How much have you had to help those other technologies to get to a level of your technology?
So without naming names, there's been one integration that has been an absolute bear for my co-founder. He has spent months and months and months. It's one step forward, two steps back, because you're just hit another thing that you have to secure for that integration. And it's just, it's difficult, but again, you have to do it the right way, because what's the point of rolling something out that's going to be just generally insecure from go, right? Are you really getting that value add when you put another piece of technology on top of something you're already paying for, and then it's generally insecure right out of the box? And it's like, okay, well, we got it out there really quickly to the market, but that really doesn't help anybody. We want to make sure that it actually is secure, that we've pen tested it, that these organizations that we work with from a pen testing standpoint are some of the best in the world, to make sure, like, hey, we've mitigated everything that we possibly could. They aren't able to get in or authenticate, or haven't been able to during these pen tests, and now we can roll this out safely and securely to your organization. So but yeah, it is difficult. It really is, because a lot of these organizations, I mean, some of them are still using 128-bit encryption stuff, and other things like that. It's like, come on, guys, like, let's get to this decade maybe.
And then as a CEO, have you been able to successfully get the attention of or get cooperation from some of these other companies? Because that's got to be a challenge, right?
It is. So, being one of the newer companies on the block, everybody tends to want to hold off until they really, you've hit a certain threshold, so to speak, right? Before they're going to invest time, effort, energy into you, whether or not they think that what you're doing is important. They might, we don't ever leave a conversation without somebody going, wow, this is really cool, right? We never leave a conversation without that going on. But whether or not it leads them to, the next potential thing where they're going to invest time, effort, energy in something. So our protocol can be taken, it's very small, it's lightweight. It can be taken to IoT, it can be taken to APIs, it can be utilized for so many different things, but you can only move as fast as companies are willing to go. And right now, I mean, I'll be honest, there's companies companies tend to check boxes, right?
Right.
If I do this, I can check this box and I've now accomplished whatever it is in that box. I don't have to go above and beyond that. They're not really thinking 5, 7 years out. They're not thinking 3 years out. They're thinking, hey, I need to check this box to get this compliance. I need to check this box to do business. Because, I mean, they're running around doing a million other things too, right?
Yeah.
So when they, we always try to get them to slow down and think about it and to really challenge them to say, okay, what are the most important aspects today for your organization? And again, getting back to the front door analogy, is your front door safe today? Would you, I wouldn't be able to sleep tonight if I couldn't lock my front door. And I actually hate, that question. I hate when people even ask that question, what keeps you up at night? It's like, well, I don't know, coffee, right? So, but, it's, the biggest thing is, it's like, what are your initiatives that are happening today? And is this something that's going to be on your roadmap? And a lot of them, are still saying usernames and passwords are, I've checked that box. I've done MFA. And I'm like, but it's so easy to break. Like, if you let me spend one afternoon, I will break it and break into your company. Like it doesn't take a whole heck of a lot. And that's a little bit scary and a little bit disheartening, but there's so many other things that these executives, that these teams these organizations are spending money on. Obviously we don't take offense to it, but we want them to do, the lowest hanging fruit first. And 80% of those breaches are through authentication, specifically social engineering. And if we can get them to do that, again, down the line, who does that help? It helps the organization, it helps its employees, it helps the users whose information that they're protecting. And now we're helping a whole slew of folks in that way.
So to hit something that, because I love to call this out, right? Because we've been fighting this forever. You are hitting a completely different philosophical change for many in the IT industry, in that you're working to build something that is actually practically secure into an environment that is so overloaded with get the features up and get it out the door so it can sell, right?
Yep.
And you're now trying to plug that gap that takes cooperation and takes filling that incredible change of philosophy that is hopefully starting to change. What do you observe on a lot of that?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously when you have, companies that are doing a lot of feature rich things, right? Especially from an authentication standpoint, you open up a lot of different holes. You have to protect a lot bigger area and things like that. We sit in front of the multiplexer of an organization. So their SSO, identity access management systems, things like that. So these organizations who have these business applications in this one singular spot, they've bought these SSOs, right? So we say this quite often is they've bought the Cadillac, right? For us, we're that insurance for that Cadillac, right? It's like, hey, why aren't you going to put insurance on top of that? It's like, that's what, we're looking for these organizations to do. But again, it's, these organizations have a lot of things that they're doing. There's only, one of our advisors, he actually used to be at a major bank here in the United States. And it was really interesting when I first started talking to him and how one of his, I think, peers thought about security as a whole. You know, you say you have 100,000 person organization. That's about the size of Boulder, Colorado. How many people are in cybersecurity for that organization? 20, 30, maybe? You know, it's not going to be a whole heck of a lot. You know, sometimes even less than that from an identity standpoint, and who knows what. But you know, now you're looking at the small amount of people that now have to police the 100,000 with that organization. Their hair's on fire every day. I mean, don't get me wrong. They're doing the best they can with what they have.
Or they've already been down that road.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they really are. They're doing the best they can with what they have and what they're given, right? From a budgetary standpoint, from an initiative standpoint, a lot of things get pushed down from the executives that they need to get done because they're also doing things for their end users. But again, you know, we come back to that simplicity standpoint that we kind of thrive off of is like, hey, let's just make things simple and let's get back to simplicity, which also most of the times equals more security as well.
Absolutely. Simplicity solves a lot.
It does. Yeah. And then, you know, so, you know, simplicity. And then, you know, obviously, you know, from our standpoint, we mitigate the portability. So each of the devices are actually provisioned separately. So again, you can't take that, you know, piece of information and use it in a bunch of different areas and places to authenticate. So, and then no longer having a static piece of information. That's something that we talk about. And I think this is something that's really, you know, getting out there in a significant way now. Have either of you heard of a crypto period before?
One more time?
A crypto period?
I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah. So it's not readily known, but it's interesting. So NIST came out as a special publication of, I think it's 853B. Don't quote me on that, but it's something like that, right? Of what they call a crypto period, and that's a useful life for a private authentication key and for authentication keys.
Oh, right. Okay.
And so they say private authentication keys should only be in use for up to 1 to 2 years, and that time keeps shrinking. And so you have this static piece of information that outside of Ethopass, nobody is addressing right now. And that's a little bit scary as well, because, you know, just like if I steal your private key for your cryptocurrency wallet, if I steal your private key for your authentication, I'm you in perpetuity until you figure it out.
Right. Like one of the big difficulties with elements of OAuth, right? That period, that credential lasts too long. Google's been having problems with that all over the place and things of that sort.
Well,
absolutely.
Session keys, API tokens, cookies, you name it. Anything that's, you know, that lives more than really 24 hours is up for grabs.
It's scary.
It is scary. And so when we go in and we talk about those session tokens for the end users when they authenticate, we tell them to keep it to a half-life, so 4 hours, half a day, and then they're going to have to authenticate again, which also now updates and rotates that key again. So you're constantly moving, constantly changing. You're staying in front of attackers and by the time they actually get a hold of that key and try to utilize it, you're probably 4, 5, 6 keys down the road, and they're like, "Oh, this didn't work. I'm going to go move on to somebody else."
Yeah. So you have the technology end that you're trying to constantly meet and reinforce the who is it, right?
Yep.
That
handshake.
We appreciate that dramatically, especially, you know, because in a college situation you have labs.
Yeah.
Right. So the person at the computer changes out every hour.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a difficulty in that, right? So, you know, shared computers. When you look at a manufacturing space, they have a, you know, command center on that manufacturing floor, and how many people utilize that. We talked to a logistics company that have shared tablets all over the place. and who's authenticating into each of those, and then authenticating into their networks and systems and stuff like that. It's a huge problem, right? One of the things, depending on how many people are on each individual device, is multiple profiles for that device and things like that. And then we have some unique things coming out for the future. I'm just gonna give you a wink on that one. That will definitely help in that aspect as well, but not something currently we're focused on today, but definitely have some great ideas on how to actually make it much safer in the future for that type of scenario as well. Because you do have, people, just your people in your family, right? How do you, if you want to let somebody use the computer, let's make sure they're doing it safely and not going to hurt you at all.
Absolutely. I'm just trying to think of, as a company, having to kind of keep up with constantly thinking about new and different scenarios, ideas, how people are integrating with their devices, how the constant fluid flux of how people use their technology and integrates, that's got to be a major challenge.
It is a major challenge. And now most companies are bring your own device companies. Now you're not even, giving a health check to the device before they're now logging into your networks and your services. I mean, it's like, it's very, very difficult. And then also, from an organization standpoint, can you really dictate what it is that they're going to have on their device, right? So you might be able to say, well, if you're not going to put this on your device, you're not going to be able to authenticate from, say, your phone. In the European Union, they're going to be like, cool, I'm good with that. And then you're like, wait, I just lost a whole bunch of productivity for that person that's going to be traveling for half of their business life. So what am I going to do with that? So it's very, very difficult. I mean, don't get me wrong. These executives, these security teams, I mean, it is very, very difficult. And usually, I'd say 85% of the time, they have one hand tied behind their back. I mean, so it's definitely difficult to try to figure out, what to do next. But there's also, you don't want to put the cart, before the horse. I talked to an executive recently. He goes, well, we love your system, but we need to get some logging and things in before we can utilize it. I go, that's great, but they're already in by the time you figured it out. It's not going to help you. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's great to know when they're in there, but would you rather keep them out first and then figure it out if it happens? So let's take some, proactive measures versus some reactive measures as well.
Oh, geez.
All about proactive. I like being proactive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, I don't envy them. We're a product company. We're a vendor. We're here to help. But like I said, everybody is out there fighting the good fight, and they have to do what they can when they can, with the time, effort, energy, resources that they do have. And it's just a matter of really educating and challenging them to say, hey, what should be first, right? If you're going to put time, effort, energy into this, what is the first thing you should do for your organization? And, I'm obviously incredibly biased, but I'm going to say authentication.
Yeah. That's a good idea, right? And then you said something else earlier about, after implementation of your product, that you guys go back and red team, right? You test it out. You make sure that that you guys do that, or is that something that you recommend that your new partner does?
So Ethopass does not do red teaming.
Right.
So we get pen tested on our technology with each integration.
Okay.
Outside of our company, because obviously, hey, don't take our word for it, take their word for it, right? Zero trust, right? We're in that zero trust world these days. So don't trust us. Trust this company over here, I guess. And then don't trust them, and maybe we vet them too. And turtles all the way down, right? Yeah.
The reason why I wanted to go back and highlight this is because literally I talked to so many vendors, so many vendors, and you're one of another thing that stands out about you and where your mission is and stuff like that is that you're the first one I've ever heard mention that about why penetration tests are important for that tool validation. You're the first one I've ever heard mention that after an integration, you're going to be pen tested, or you should get someone to pen test to make sure that the proof is in the pudding, right?
That's because he goes beyond the checkbox.
Right, because he goes beyond the checkbox and he actually cares. I just wonder out there, have you guys ever heard of a vendor get excited about the fact that you're going to pen test their product once it's integrated? Anybody? I've never heard anybody get excited.
It should be. I mean, not the next question is, outside of maybe pen testing once a year or having their internal teams rotating it, how many security vendors actually pen test on a regular basis with an outside vendor?
Right. Like,
it's not many.
I mean, it's in there. It's that goes back to that third party risk, right? We were talking about third party risk and compliance and everything else with the GRC conversation we had. Was that just last week? That was last week with Tanisha, right? Cross from Match.com. That we were, and that's something that her team kind of is got their finger on all the time. That would be, I mean, I spoke to her a bit, off show and stuff. And that is something that they're very focused on, especially for that third party risk kind of situation. But Bert, I just love you. You throw it out there. You don't hide from it. You're like, no, if this integration goes wrong, right? Like that's not helping you, but we're going to make sure it's right all the way up to we're going to put the stamp of approval on it, right? Like it's going to be great. It's going to
get to the practical, right? Just like your sandals that you're wearing, you get down to the practical. What are we actually trying to do? What are we actually trying to accomplish? And it's not just checking off a box compliance wise, and it can't be. And you talk about pen tests. How many companies out there? Oh my word! And you've right here been the voice for different security teams that are working as hard as they possibly can. But how many of those pen tests that have been out there that they don't have new pen tests because they still haven't completed the results of the last one?
Yeah, right. The mitigation steps of the last one. Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up. It really is. The other thing, and you just mentioned this is, I think companies also have to go to what they're best at, right? I see, cybersecurity as a whole getting into much more niche areas versus big bundled services, right? If you're really good at authorization, do that. If you're really good at governance, do that. If you're good at authentication, do that. But then don't tell me you're also going to be this, and this, and you're going to be the best at all of those things, because we know that's not the case, right? And don't get me wrong. I know, again, companies are going to try to save money where they can, and if they can, get further along with one vendor bundling all those services, a lot of times they're going to go ahead and try it. But unfortunately, you're also not going to get to a best in class scenario, and that's from a security standpoint where you want to be.
One product can't solve it all.
No, if it was that easy, I mean, we wouldn't even be around right now, right?
But it's a single pane of glass.
Why you say stuff just to upset me, Will? I hate that phrase.
Yeah. Well, that's also where all those large cascading failures come from. And getting back to Rachel, you just said with third party risk is we actually integrate with each client separately. So you have your own implementation of Ethopass in and of itself. And so you can't break into Ethopass to then get into all of the other companies out there today. It doesn't work that way. It's decentralized and distributed. So, we remove ourselves as a third-party risk for these organizations.
Isn't that nice? I love that part. I absolutely love that part.
It's important. It really is. I mean, today with the cloud and everything being centralized, you got to, have some things out there that aren't going to cause that next, oh, they got into 600 companies, or they got into, hey, don't worry, they only got into 15% of our client base.
Right.
Wait, what? How many is that? Like, is that a large number? Is that a small number? Was I affected?
Right. Then that leaves a whole bunch of questions. I like the degrees of separation there. That's nice.
Yeah.
But
You're
the-
so
Again, like I said, don't trust us, please. So one of our advisors, shameless plug here, but John Kinderbog, who created Zero Trust, he's one of our advisors, and he's great about that. And obviously it's obviously landed for us because we, like we say all the time, don't trust us. Verify.
I'm going to do this again so people can go check out, because on the Ethopass website, you guys have your list of advisors. So you can go check them out. Go be nosy. We encourage nosy research.
Yeah, go check it out. Yeah, and if you think we can help your organization, give us a call, and we'll let you know pretty quick.
Yeah, definitely.
This is where I love your practical approach that way, right? And again, with folks that are trying to sell this kind of stuff, call Rachel and get a master class on how to do it, right? Because it's a matter of becoming partners and building those relationships to bring the practical aspect of things together instead of just the shinola that comes out. And so I really appreciate it that you are a voice of trying to bring that simplicity, bring that practical direct into play. It's so needed.
That's Chris Roberts ran off, rubbing off on us a little bit there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't do the shiny blinky lights.
shiny blinky lights, right? Like that's what distracts people from building it right. They forget that they need to sway a little bit back and forth on their knees and their hands, and then maybe take that first baby crawling motion, and then maybe try to hold on to the edge of the couch and stand up, and then maybe let go of the couch and walk, right? And then maybe run. Like, blinky lights are for runners, okay? Like, stop with the blinkies.
Yeah.
What? Oh no, it must be time. It is. We're at time, because Princess is pawing at my leg going, "Ma, we got to go potty." Look. Yes, I know. We got to go potty. All right, time for final thoughts. Final thoughts from, let's start with Will. Final thoughts.
Just to echo what I said, thank you, sir, for being one of the folks standing in the breach to help change the philosophy and help bring practicality into where it's so needed. So needed.
Yep, definitely. Bert, final thoughts, buddy.
Well, I appreciate the two of you, because you bring people like me and other knuckleheads like me on to espouse and pontificate up here on my high horse, right? So we definitely appreciate it, and again, we try to be useful. We try to bring just that simplicity back to security, and hopefully everybody gain something from listening to me today and listening to you all today. And I know I always enjoy logging in every Friday and catching the two of you talking to other people as well.
Yay!
Only get better together, man. I want to thank all of our wonderful viewers, commenters, the folks that go back and watch this stuff on Saturday because they're just busted busy on Fridays. We love you so much. Thank you for circling up and grabbing a cup with us today. We will see you guys next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. They're upset. They're so upset right now. Look, she's just really okay. We're going. All right. Everybody wave and smile.